So guys, a few days ago, I did a video about like 5 reasons that AEW sucks and 5 ways to improve it. And I also have I wrote down like 5 things and I'm going to elaborate on them, like 5 more things that AEW has issues with. First of all, one of their big issues are inconsistent rules. And this means like one of the reasons why I said this was that I was very mad with the John Moxley IWGP match because what happened was that they went outside the ring for over 20 seconds and they said, oh, well, this is not a 10 count. When you defend the IWGP title, it's over like 20 seconds. You have up to 20 seconds. And that's one thing. You know, if you have foreign titles or titles with specific rules, you always have to state them. With the pure title, I actually think that the pure title in Ring of Honor, sometimes they do that and sometimes they don't do that because that title has a bunch of like special rules. And the other issue that I would even say with the pure title is that there's too many like rules to follow with that. And the other rule, and this is the big one that they do in AEW, is 2 things. That number one, they have hardcore match spots and regular matches, like ripping the floor padding and doing pile drivers, or another big one's table spots. And then the other one is also being outside the ring for a couple of minutes or whatever, when it's actually when it's a regular match, because obviously that would be a disqualification or double disqualification. So I think the rule really is that, from now on, if you should defend special titles at special events, like, okay, John Moxley just won the IWGP Championship. That's good. So he should defend it on Dynamite. I would say, like, I'm okay with him defending it on Dynamite that one time. But then you kind of say, okay, he's not going to defend it unless he has a match at Double or Nothing because it's an extra special pay-per-view. Why not? And then definitely Forbidden Door. So that way you're not bringing a title with so many different rules and defending it too many times, because then it becomes a little confusing because you're like, okay, this person has this title, that person has that title, they're all different rules. It becomes, you need to kind of like not have a lot of titles that have different rules overly featured because it just is confusing. So it's not going to always feature those titles. The next thing you need to do is have credits and graphics to explain the rules. Like, for example, one thing I liked about NXT was when they had that 30-minute scramble type of thing, they at least posted the rules. And when you were in the audience watching it, the rules were posted for the entire 30-minute duration because they wanted to make sure that obviously people knew what was going on, really. So when you have titles with rules, you need to kind of like have graphics or even like subtitles for a couple of minutes. So when people are flipping through the channels or when they're watching this match, they know what the rules are. The next thing I would say is that they need to know the difference between a hardcore match and a regular match. So like as I said, if somebody's outside the ring for more than 10 seconds, that should end the match in a DQ. Or if they're outside the ring for like over a minute and the referee's following them and they're doing whatever they want, that should be disqualification. Or they're putting something through a table or other things, that should be a disqualification. It doesn't make the match better; it makes the match more stupid, because it's like saying, okay, well, in a regular match in AEW, I can be outside the ring for a couple of minutes. I can dive off the top apron and put something through a table, or I'm going to rip the ground and put a pile driver on somebody. So when you kind of like always do that, it doesn't, when you always do that, people are like, okay, what are the rules really? So I don't like the inconsistent rules. It's not helpful to anybody. So definitely, you have to follow regular rules, such as a regular match has a 10-second outside the ring thing. And then also, if somebody's doing any like table spots or whatever, that can always end in a disqualification. The next thing I'll get to is defending foreign titles and too many titles. So like having 18 titles in a company is not good. It's not good when you have the pure title and IWGP title, which have different rules. And then if somebody, I think it's Conan was saying that if you watch AEW and you're having a show, there's 18 different titles, and you almost have like a Dynamite show, and everybody's holding a title. It's like, how is anybody really special, because everybody's holding a title? And then it's like, what about your divisions? Because really, you can't have 18 different divisions. Even though AEW has like a really big roster, and then what about if you run into a situation of people who want to be double champion, triple champions, or other things like that? Because it can turn to a situation where people just have way too many belts and all that. So I think the solution is that they have to kind of get rid of some belts and unify belts. Like I would say with all the ROH titles, I think they're at the point where ROH has to be either its own brand and you need to split the roster, or you need to do something like get rid of ROH and then just make it AEW and get rid of everybody's titles. The next thing they got to do is that if you have titles from Japan or other companies that, eventually your wrestler loses or they defend them very, very rarely, because it's like, why would you kind of defend a title like that all the time knowing that it's just going to be a problem. And I also will say that, as I say, less is more. Because obviously, if you look at Willow Nightingale, definitely her and Mercedes Moné are telling really great stories, but honestly, what would happen if they featured Athena and like the women's, I think, TV title on regular television? It would feel like a little clustered. So sometimes that's why less is more. That's kind of why I think in WWE in the 80s, they kind of really believed in having not that many titles, really, because it was better for people to fight over a few titles than so many titles. So, definitely unifying is good, but definitely if a parent's being taught, definitely if, I'm sorry, I'm falling asleep, really, so I'm a little like, I gotta make sure I'm telling you guys I gotta make sure I'm consistent, not telling you guys stuff that's happening in my dreams. But yeah, defending foreign titles, you gotta kind of make sure, and too many titles, you gotta kind of make sure you cut down on that. You gotta unify titles, you gotta get rid of some titles. You also gotta think about maybe only titles are defended on certain shows, really, So like I've said, I think that if I was to do it, I would have the TNT title, the AEW Championship, and also the World Tag Team Championship and the Women's Tag Team Champion, the women's title defended on Dynamite. And then maybe on Collision, I would have the ROH Championship defended on both shows. I would do the ROH Tag Team Championship, and I would do the TBS women's title, and I would do the international title, just to kind of like break it up a bit, so that's good. The next piece of criticism I have is not understanding the purpose of Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, and Ring of Honor. And this has been a big issue with AEW because it seems like wrestlers go, wherever they want to or win whatever title, really, So I do think that this is what I would say, that Dynamite needs to be your top draws, So it could be, Omega, the EVPs, or your top stories, Swerve, and other people. So they should always be on Dynamite. Rampage should be, one of two things. It should be your spillover of the AEW main event if you need to do that, but they need to do that rarely. If you have like additional matches that you can't imagine, just treat AEW Dynamite like a 2-hour show, really, and then have Rampage feel like it's third hour, really. But that's how I would look at Rampage. But I would say that what I would do is I would get rid of Rampage and make Dynamite at least 3 hours. That would be what I would do. I would say Collision should also be a show featuring, it should have its own roster, and it should also be a show that I think what you should do is get rid of Collision and make it Ring of Honor. AEW ROH. That's what I would do. And the ROH title becomes the title of that show, and you kind of combine the ROH roster and the Collision roster. And then what I would do is that the purpose of that show would be to feature other wrestlers, so they have an opportunity to prosper, really. Like, for example, what if you had Daniel Garcia phase Mark Briscoe for the ROH championship, because Daniel Garcia is not ready to hold the AEW championship. What if you had Anthony Bowens, or what would you happen if you had, another wrestler like maybe Orange Cassidy hold the ROH title? That's why that would work better as the ROH show. And then the other issue is to consolidate and get rid of some shows. I think if you have two shows, Dynamite and AEW Ring of Honor, I would say that would be better options, really, because then it's almost like why would you guys have a Collision show? Because what's really the purpose of Collision? Its only purpose was to put CM Punk and other people on a different brand because people were fighting, really, So I do think that, and that's also good for you if it's just AEW ROH, because then again, you can have a 3-hour ROH show, you can have a 3-hour Dynamite show, and that would be good to feature everybody, draw tickets, have their own pay-per-views, so that would be a better option. The next thing that I have is not doing a match release of wrestlers. Like, obviously you have a bloated roster, and then also you have some people who are very arrogant and entitled. So one big thing that I can kind of say is that it's good to release a lot of wrestlers, because a lot of wrestlers know that, okay, they got to improve, they got to do better, or if they're a pain in the butt, really, they go packing. And that's also good because in WWE, that's one of the reasons why they mass release wrestlers, for a couple of reasons, because they're money hungry. They also just want to get rid of like the pain in the necks, really. And then also there's wrestlers that aren't improving, or they hire way too many people. They need to fire a lot of people. That's important, really, because you got to kind of make sure you're profitable, and you're not like, okay, this is just a this is just like a welfare check type of thing, really, So I really think that having match release is good, just to kind of pay less people, because obviously, why should you be featuring people who are sitting at home, really, and doing nothing? The next thing that I would say is also that it may motivate the roster, the people who are fighting, having arguments, to be like, okay, you know what, I'm kind of being a jerk. The best way to solve your problem with jerks is just to get rid of them, and other things like that, really. So I do think that releasing the roster, doing match releases every couple of while is actually just the thing to do, really. I'm sorry, the neighbors have a freaking loud kid, it's like the whole house shakes, The next thing to do is keeping wrestlers on certain brands. And this is another big issue with AEW. What would happen if you had like Miro, Mark Briscoe, House of Black, FTR on one show, and then you have Swerve Strickland and a few other people on another show? And the reason why you would do that is that it makes you miss those wrestlers, and also makes you want to see the other shows, because you're like, okay, well, they're not involved in this thing or that thing, really. And then you can kind of do drafts to switch things up. Like with what WWE does, it's really good, because if Roman Reigns was on both shows, really, he doesn't become that special. And then also the other thing too is that it allows other feuds and storylines to kind of really go. And then you can also create, a friendly rivalry. Because as I said, what would happen if you had Dan Garcia versus Mark Briscoe, and they're getting attention, and they're being wild, and they're being crazy. And what happens is that they say, you know what, that title is going to be defended at the as the main event of AEW Double or Nothing, or we're going to make it the penultimate. Then Swerve and Christian will be like, you know what, man, look at these new guys. We got to actually step up our game. Or they'll be like, okay, well, maybe Swerve isn't working out, so we have to put Daniel Garcia in that conversation of next champion. So it's good when you have wrestlers on different brands. It creates friendly rivalry. It creates missing that person. Like, oh, I have to go to this show to actually see them. And I would also even say, too, that keeping somebody on a certain brand is also a good idea, because it allows more people to prosper. And then you'd be like, okay, well, I can work with two bigger rosters, because like everybody has their own brand and their own ideas, and everybody has jobbers or people coming up and stuff like that. And then also they need to think about their next generation of wrestlers. So how can you really have if you have somebody like the EVPs on Collision and Rampage all the time, really, how can you let somebody like Daniel Garcia or Anthony Bowens or Max Caster or I would even say Darby Allin or Sammy Guevara and those other people, and Jack Perry. How can you kind of have them stand out more if you have somebody going back and forth on different brands, really? You have to kind of, allow somebody to kind of like, stand out on their own show, really. So there's definitely a lot of ways AEW can improve, So I hope that, maybe one day Tony Khan finds this video and he gets some good ideas.